In this video, I'm gonna show you the top 5 reasons for why customers are not buying from you. And you wanna make sure you watch this video all the way through because the reasons for why people don't buy are not always obvious. So once you learn all the reasons for why people don't buy in this video, you can start fixing your bad habits and start closing more deals. What's going on, everybody? Patrick Ding here. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's dive into the top 5 reasons for why people don't buy. So the first reason that prevents people from buying your products and services is pain. Pain, 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 and pain. The problem that a lot of salespeople have is that when they're selling their products and services, they sell it like a nice to have. It's kind of like, oh, I'm selling this product or service, I'm selling this software. And then the customer thinks like, oh, that's nice to have, but I don't really need it right now. And then the salesperson's like, oh, what? But it can do this and that. Here's the features and the benefits. And they're just like, oh, that's nice, but probably not right now, right? And so when this happens, the prospect's not gonna buy because it's a nice to have. They don't really see a reason for why they need to buy it right then, right now, and maybe in the future they might, but in the future nothing is really going to change, so they're never gonna buy anyways. You wanna change the perspective of your product and service from a nice to have to something that people should buy. And here is the easiest way to do it, right? No matter what product or service you're selling, whether it's software, consulting, commodity service, you can use this format to basically use pain as the main motivator to get people to buy emotionally, okay? So here's the steps. Make sure you write this down. Step number 1, identify the pains. What are the biggest problems that a prospect currently faces that you can potentially solve, right? Like seriously, what is the problem? What keeps them up at night? What are the problems they experience on a day-to-day basis that they just hate, that it's sucking out their time, energy, they're wasting money doing it, right? Identify the problems. Step number 2 is understand their ideal situation, right? What do they want their life to look like if that problem went away, right? So in one scenario, maybe they're spending a lot of time doing administrative work. And then ideally, they might want to not do any administrative work and just focus on generating more revenue for their business, as an example, right? And they just hate this administrative work because it takes so many hours and so much time and it's a mess. Okay, so 1, what's the pain? 2, what's their ideal situation? Step number 3 is how do you get them from this side all the way to the other side, from pain to pleasure? And that's all you're really doing with your product and service. So you don't want to talk about these features and benefits for no reason. All you need to understand is what's their problem, what do they want to do, how do you exactly get them from point A to point B. If they understand that, that's the value that you create and that's the reason for why they want to buy. So whenever you're pitching a product and service or people ask you, what do you do? Don't make the mistake of just rambling on about, oh yeah, we help this industry do this and that, here's our features, we have this amazing software that's going to do this. People don't really care and they kind of lose track of what you're even talking about, right? It's like, what's the point? What's the reason for why they should listen? So how I would start it, if I were in your situation, is I would say, okay, look, here's a problem that these people have in this industry, specifically about XYZ. Here's where they want their life to look like. They want this problem to be away. They want to save time. They want to save money. They want to make more money, whatever it is. From there, you say, okay, so now what we do is we help our clients go from point A to point B by doing this thing. Here's an example. Let's say, a coding bootcamp, right? So basically people who have jobs that they don't really like and they want to make a career switch, but they want to get into learning how to code, but they don't want to go back to university and do a 4-year education in software engineering, but they just want to learn very quickly and just get a new job fast, right? So that's the value a coding bootcamp might bring. And a coding bootcamp might be like, a bootcamp that's like, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, to turn someone who has no experience in coding into a coder who can actually get a real job at a real company, right? Great. If I was selling that kind of coding bootcamp from someone to someone who, not very happy with their job and they want to make that switch, I would say, look, you have a job right now, it's going okay, you're making decent money, but obviously you don't really like it and you want to get into coding, you want to get into technology, totally understand. And right now, the problem is that you don't want to go back to school because it's expensive and it takes too much time. You have to spend like 4 years doing an undergrad degree when you already have an undergrad degree in computer science or coding. And that's it's just not worth the time and energy to do, especially at your age, right? You need to go fast, you need to get a job right now. And ideally you would want a really high paying job doing coding at a good company like a Facebook or Google or Microsoft or something like that. Totally get where you're coming from. Now, here's how our coding bootcamp helps. We're gonna accelerate the process so that instead of spending 4 years of your time and $200,000 going to a traditional university to learn how to code, we're gonna do that in 3 months where you're gonna learn essentially all the fundamental skills to actually get a job at, let's say, a Google or Facebook and this and that. And we actually have clients who have done this, who are in very similar in your shoes, who have no coding experience, they were able to go through the process after 3 months, and then they got a job at XYZ. Right? So that's essentially how I would pitch that story. So it's not like, oh, we're a coding bootcamp, we're one of the best in the nation and this and that. It's like, okay, but why do people care? So if you tailor what you say specifically for the person's pain, and show that you can help them get to where they want to go in an easy way that's affordable, it's going to be a lot more easier to get people to buy. All right, so the next reason for why people don't buy is time, right? The timing of when they should buy. So for time, you got to understand that people have different time and buying cycles, right? For some sales that are very transactional, you can sell them right there, right then. For other sales, even if they want to buy, they just cannot buy. Maybe their company doesn't have the budget yet, or it's not the time for them to change vendors. You know, there's many different reasons for why someone can't buy, even if they want to. So you have to understand the buying cycle and basically work your territory to a point where you know everybody's buying cycle, and when you know they're ready to buy, you're gonna pop in the door, give them a call, and have that selling conversation. So let's say a coding bootcamp, for example. That's a quick buying cycle where someone already has a job, they're already making money, they have enough saved up, they could go into a coding bootcamp confidently, okay? So you can close them right there, right then, because if they don't already like their job and they're looking for a switch, and you happen to be the opportunity that helps them get to where they wanna go, you can close right there. You don't have to wait 6 months, 1 year. But if, let's say, somebody says that, you know, they're under a contract and they have to stay at a certain company for 1 more year, then probably they won't buy because they still have to work at that company and they don't have time to do a full-time coding bootcamp. So you have to make a note and say, okay, well, right now this person wants to buy, they cannot buy, they're under contract. So 1 year later, I'm going to follow up with this person and see if they're ready to move forward with the coding bootcamp, right? Same thing if you're selling to a large enterprise company, selling on marketing services or consulting or software. You know, you have to understand when people have budgets opening up and they are looking to buy, right? It's just like, you know, they have to have, there's approval processes before that actually happens. So understand, not everybody will buy right there, right then, because they just can't. So know their buying cycle and then work with that. And don't think that just because someone doesn't buy with you, you know, the first week after meeting you doesn't mean they're not interested. It just means maybe that their buying cycle is just not around the corner yet. So follow up with them and make sure you know when that buying cycle is and close them later. Now, the next reason for why people don't buy is the budget. So timing is very important to understand when somebody buys, but the budget is also important too, because if someone doesn't have money to buy, they cannot buy, right? So for example, if you're selling an expensive enterprise software to a small, medium business, and your thing is super expensive, probably they just can never buy it, even if they want to buy your product and service, because they just can't afford it, right? So let's say you're charging $50,000 a year for a high-end enterprise software. If you're selling to a small, medium business, mom and pop shop, and maybe their entire revenue for the year is 100,000, they're not gonna buy your 50,000 software. It's just not gonna work, right? So understand people's budget, whether it's you're selling to small, medium business companies or all the way to enterprise companies, because it does matter. Not everybody has an infinite limitless budget, right? Large enterprise, they have dedicated amounts of budget dedicated to certain things, whether it's like recruiting, software, whatever, right? And there's a lot of approval processes they go through to figure out how much budget should be allocated for each thing. And you also want to make sure that, you know, you understand the prospect has a budget before you even take them through a buying cycle, because you don't want to go through a presentation and all that just to find in the end they can't even afford your product or service, right? So the easiest way to figure out if someone has a budget is you just ask them during your first sales call and you say, hey, look, seems like this is a really good fit for us to work together, but I'm curious to know if you or your company has dedicated a budget for something like this. And they would, you know, maybe give you a range. They might say, yeah, we have a budget. And you say, okay, well, you know, if you were to give a range of like what that budget looks like, you know, what would that be? And maybe they might say, oh, you know, $10,000 to $20,000, right? And even if they don't tell you, you say, what if they say, oh, you know, we don't want to share that right now? Then you say, okay, that's totally fine, I understand. But if you were to give, you know, a ballpark number, you know, what would that look like? Would it be something large or small, right? So, I mean, you got to get at least a feel of, you know, if they have a budget or not. They may not give you an exact number, but understand the range. Is it 10K to 20K, 20K to 100K? You know, like what are you working with, and can you actually make it work on your end so that you qualify them to understand if they can even afford your product and service, so you can decide if you should, you know, move them further down in your sales cycle. And if they don't fit, then you got to cut it off right there. Now, the next reason for why people don't buy is the authority, right? Decision-making process. So let's say you're selling to a larger organization, right? If you're talking to, let's say, a recruiter or a recruiting manager and you're selling some kind of recruiting software, well, the recruiting manager probably doesn't make a decision on what software they should use. Most likely it's the director of recruiting and everyone above, like VP of HR, or maybe it might be the C-suite who makes the decision, or CEO. So understand the decision-making process at every company you are selling to. If you are selling to small businesses, you need to understand, is it just the owner of the business that makes the decision, or is there someone that they trust that will also help make the decision, right? Maybe you have to convince both people. If it's a large organization, these are a lot of people. Is it the CEO, the CTO, the head of HR? Is it procurement? Like, who is making the decisions? And the easiest way to figure it out, because every sale is going to be different, every market is a little different, from small, medium to enterprise companies. So all you gotta do is ask, right? That's pretty much the game. Asking the things that you don't know. So if you're working with a large organization and you need to understand the decision-making process, you would say something like, okay, if we were to move forward with a deal like this, what would it look like on your end? Is there anyone else we need to involve in the decision-making process before you actually move forward, right? However you want to say it, it's basically the same thing. Who needs to be involved in this decision? You want to understand who all the decision makers are and how much power they have or influence they have in the company to actually make that buying decision, so you can kind of adjust accordingly as you start selling. So don't think that just because you had a meeting with one person, that person is going to sell your product to the rest of their organization. Most likely you're going to have to sell to everybody, get everybody in the same room and have a presentation so that they have the experience of working with you. Never expect one person at a company to sell for you. You are the salesperson, not them. So make sure you have the opportunity to get in front of the decision makers. And the next tip for why people don't buy that I have for you is your uniqueness. So there's a saying where it says, to be seen as better, you gotta be seen as different, right? Different essentially is better, right? It may not always be true, but when you are different, people perceive you automatically as better because you're not the same as everybody else. So whatever it is you're selling, you gotta understand, are you actually the same as everybody else? Because if you're offering a product or service that's literally the same as everybody else, why would somebody logically want to buy from you versus anyone else, right? It just doesn't make sense. So when you're selling, it's gonna be extremely difficult because you're a commodity. You're just like everyone else. So you want to add some kind of flavor or uniqueness to what you're selling, even if you're selling a commodity product or service, right? So it can be things from a guarantee, past customer success that's just overwhelmingly positive, the buying experience with the salesperson. Maybe you're more consultative, and instead of just selling something, you are guiding the customer make better decisions and acting as a real consultant to them as you are selling stuff. So there's many different ways to slice and dice it, but you got to make sure that you are unique. And a lot of times, being unique, especially if you're selling a commodity service, is just niching down and rechanging like what you do and who you are for until you're the best in your industry, right? So for example, if someone was a sales coach, like a general sales coach, and they're trying to get clients, it's not that easy to do because there are many other sales coaches, right? Now, if somebody said, they said, I'm a sales coach that specifically focused on enterprise Fortune 500 companies who want to do outbound lead generation using cold email and phone calls, and I am an expert when it comes to understanding the data in CRMs to optimize your salespeople, and I have a track record of increasing sales at every company I touch by at least 15%, then that's very specific, very niche. It's sales coaching, but going super deep into a specific market, doing a specific thing that many people want to do. And so now that person went from a general sales coach to something extremely specific to a specific group of Fortune 500 companies doing a specific thing. And not many people can do that. So suddenly, because they are different in their way they position themselves, they are unique, right? So in your industry, what are some ways you can differentiate yourself? Because no matter how great you are as a salesperson, the easiest way to sell something is actually just to sell a good product and service that's different from everybody else. That's just the truth. You can take a bad salesperson selling something really good, and they would, sell it pretty okay because the product sells itself, right? You could take a really great salesperson and sell something that's same as everybody else, and it would be difficult for them because there's no reason for why someone would choose them versus another person, right? Then it's just like a price war. So try to find ways to make yourself unique, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because you can change your offer. But if you are a salesperson, try to dive deep into, understanding the mindset of the founder and the CEO and understanding the proposition of what they're offering. Talk to your customers, talk to your current clients, understand why they choose you versus anybody else, right? Find these reasons, put it into your pitch, and that's gonna help you sell a lot more. And so those are gonna be the top 5 reasons for why prospects are not buying. So if you're aware of these things and you can fix these variables, well, selling and closing is going to be so much easier. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and if you want to start and accelerate your sales career and really take your sales to the next level, I got a free training on exactly how to do that. Link is in the description, so make sure to check that out. With that said, my name is Patrick Dang, and I'll see you guys in the next one.